thanks for having us. By the way, appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for being here. We're here at Film Obsessive. I'm Jay Rohr, and we have the pleasure of the company of Chris Taylor and Tony Doupé. Uh, and We're here to talk about a film that they got right now called Winter Island. So let me just get my stuff ready here. And okay, so kick things off. Both of you got this award-winning film right now. It's called Winter Island. How would you describe this movie?
Go ahead,
Uh,
Tony. I'll let you.
yeah, interesting. It's where the horror genre meets small town genre, I think, I've worked with Chris a number of times, and the horror genre is not I love the genre, I appreciate it, but I've acted in it, but I've never really directed it before. So Chris gave me the opportunity to direct this. And I think what following the traditions of horror, I think what we brought to it was just more of a small town family story in a lot of ways too. It's a ghost story, definitely, but it just has a sense of realism and deals with a lot more issues, kind of like a lot of the horror movies that are being developed today. I think that genre is kind of engulfed in a lot of other genres. So it's good people having horrible things happen to them, and good people doing horrible things for whatever the circumstances are. So I guess I would describe it as a small town ghost story, Chris, in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's basically a island that's kind of unknown or known to the surrounding residents, and weird things start to occur after the death of a family member uh, in this family, and particularly the brother, the teenage brother, um, and it's it kind of leads him on this journey of finding out what happened to the sister that dies very unexpectedly, and starts to unearth some things that occur in his own family, and it's got some cultish vibes to it, and basically it all stems from the island, and weird things, apparitions, ghosts start to appear as soon as he starts trying to unearth these things on the island.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
that really does influence the human element too. Like Chris said, the family on on the surface looks like a perfect killed the family member or how the family member died. It just all the secrets kind of reveal, and you just see the disintegration of the family and the disintegration of the people in the family as well too, and that's a big part of the horrific part of the story.
Oh yeah, I would almost say like there's like a classical gothic quality to Winter Island. Like although it's a ghost story, it is more about a family as they sort of like collapse into insanity, given the mystery of the disappearance of the daughter, the sister. And that is one of the things that really I think will hook the audience when they're watching this film is what do people know about that disappearance? What did they know before and after, and how it affects them. And as that unravels, that's kind of the thing that I think that really
Yeah.
catches people and keeps their focus.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so what was the inspiration for this tale? Like where did it come from?
My best friend lives in the house where the shooting or where the filming occurred for the movie, where the family lives in the movie, and we basically were sitting in his backyard on the beach. I think this was 2020. I think it was right after COVID because we filmed. Yeah, just and this best friend of mine, he's the producer on the movie, and we were just kind of discussing, would it be fun to do another movie because we had worked together. That's how we met 14 years ago on a feature film, and we didn't have any ideas or any plots or concepts. So we just it was just started with, let's do a movie that takes place here that has to do with this island, kind of far off, not too far off in the distance, but from where we were sitting, it seemed like it was a far off island, and it just has this very cool geography, and particular city or that particular small town that he lives in. And it started from there. And I just started from scratch. I figured, we're not going to have a lot of money on this, so let's do a horror film because they're a little bit easier to sell and easier to market as a horror. So we went in knowing that we were going to spend roughly this amount of money and do this kind of genre, and we just went from there. And I kind of went through and just started highlighting ideas and eventually found another filmmaker friend of mine in LA to help me write it. And within a year and a half, we were on set shooting it. Long story short.
The story at the heart of Winter Island, it's got some heavy themes to it. There's abuse and there's suicide and violence, but there's also there's a direct criticism of religion. Were you ever worried you might be touching on some highly flammable topics when you were putting this together?
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
I'm not, and I can't speak for Tony, but I'm not a religious person, but I'm a fervent defender of people who have faith, and I didn't want to upset either side. But that's what filmmaking and storytelling is taking risks of offending people, and so we just went for it. And I feel like it does kind of have some slights against people that have religion. Obviously, if you watch the movie, um, it's very scathing of people with faith. But I think the idea was that there's people that have faith and there's people that have kind of a excessive amount of ideas when it comes to that kind of thing. So
Yeah, I agree. It's maybe not a criticism, but an analysis of faith to the fundamental form is kind of the way I looked at it. Like if everything is because of this particular reason, or we do all of this because of this one particular entity, whatever the faith is, seems like fundamentalism or extremism is when we get in trouble.
Mhm.
When we get in trouble, when we go to war, when we get in trouble, when our family disintegrates, when we get in trouble for whatever reasons, that there just isn't that type of flexibility or listening when you're so absolute in your beliefs and you're not listening to other points of views or considering other points of views, you know, that's when I think the trouble starts. And that's what happens with this particular character in the family too. The father character
Mhm.
is that his faith is so strict that there's no room for, some humanity.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I enjoyed about it was with the father character. I think his name is Jonah, if I remember off the top of my head.
mhm.
Right.
I liked his sort of slide into more of an intense religious fervor, and how that you'd think it was give him peace, but at the same time it's sort of it allows him to become more distracted and insane. And it's that sort of dangerous response when people think that they're doing the right thing, and
Yeah,
gives them permission to be more intense.
exactly. And to kind of justify every move and
Mhm.
everything that he does do, when we get to that point when he's trapped into it, yeah, he sees it as justification. And that's the danger. What I see the danger of faith, uh, extremism faith, because I think faith is
Mhm.
a good thing. Faith is a wonderful thing, but that extremism of fundamentalism, that's when we get in trouble.
And I think the film does a good job of portraying that it's not simply a criticism of him having a religious point of view. It's that, as you say, that sort of fundamentalist intensification where it becomes blind to any other possibility.
Yeah,
And
Yeah, that was the line that we drew early on, or at least through script writing. Uh, we specifically didn't mention any religion for that reason. And we discussed how far should we go, how much should we show in terms of a specific type of religion, and we decided to keep it um, pretty open to interpretation. I mean, there's some obvious things in the film that we depict that you can kind of tell what kind of faith this guy has and this family has. But it was we decided just we want to kind of keep the whole specificity out of it and just make it more about the religion as a whole.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think
Probably. Oh, go ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
please, please.
I say probably just with the symbolism that was in the film too. The cross is a character in there, so it probably, again, Chris is right. We were trying to be ambiguous, but that it helped to have that type of symbolism.
Well,
Yeah,
in
it's
some
hard to be completely agnostic to the type, no pun intended, to the type of religion that we're trying to depict, but that makes it easier to convey the idea that these people are religious.
Well, I think a lot of people will be able to relate to it. I know there were aspects of that, like, I don't want to go into anything specific because I don't want to spoil the movie for people, but there were certain instances with the dad that certainly remind me of things in my own background growing up.
Sure.
And I think that one of the things that's great about these depictions are the performers you have, because the cast does a really great job of showing off the family's descent and their intensity and that kind of thing. And it's pretty impressive because there are a lot of scenes that don't have a tremendous amount of dialogue. There are several moments where characters are sort of like looking at one another, like they want to talk, but they don't know what to say or are afraid of the response. And I'm curious, how do you cast performers who can express that on film? That must have been a tricky part of the production, like finding people who can convey things just by looking at one another.
Yeah, we went through a traditional casting process, but uh, like Chris and I have been working together and with a lot of these people for a long time, so we had some history with some of the people that we cast, and then just kind of felt with the people that we didn't know that we cast. It's about 50-50, right, Chris? And 50% of the people we probably did know
Yeah,
or worked with before, then the other 50. Um, just kind of had a feeling. And, I'm a big believer when an actor reads a script and identifies with the script and they're auditioning for the project because of the script, not because of the job. And so those were the type of people that we were going after. And then we got really lucky with the young lead, who was a student of mine where I teach. And he just started the program here at Shoreline, gosh, a quarter beforehand. And I saw a quality within him. And because that was our biggest scare, was casting that. It's hard to find young actors that can pull something like that off. And Elijah, man, he just sunk his teeth into it. First movie he's ever done. And man, just brought it. Just
yeah,
brought it.
that could have gone really poorly because it like you said, it is really hard to find young actors who can carry a movie. He was in almost every scene, so that made the movie for me, especially just being able to cast somebody like Elijah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the glue. He definitely was the
Mhm.
glue.
And how do you direct people through like nonverbal moments like that? Like what do you do to help them sort of like stay true to the story?
Take your time in the moment, and like Chris would always remind me, I grew up as a stage director, so I kind of have a different, you know, different muscle reaction. And then we'd take a take, and Chris would say, "Just slow it down, man. Just slow it down. Underplay it. Just underplay it. Just let them take their time." And he was right. He was right every time. And play against the emotion would be a lot of what I would say. Play against it, feel it, but internalize it as much as you can. Don't. It's simmer. It's not boil. You get a couple boils, but only a couple. Other than that, it's simmer.
Right.
Um, so okay, there's an interesting sort of like a blue-gray quality to the film's like daytime scenes. And there's always this sense of like a light fog, and it's really ethereal, which is great for a supernatural film. And there was like at one point in my head, I was like, does this color sort of like match the skin tone of the ghost the few times we see her?
Mhm.
But that might have just been me. But how do you decide that's the way you want the overall film to look? And like, how hard is it to achieve?
Um, I joked that I was copying Ozark because that was the big movie or show at the time. So like, I pulled a lot of inspiration from that, just because it's such a great looking show, um, while using a very monochrome color template. They very rarely go out, use a lot of different colors in their scenes, and but aside from that, it was really just, it says it in the title. We're going for a winter in Washington, and it's very rainy, very cold, very blue. Not a lot of sun or daylight days in those months. So it just felt natural. I didn't try too hard to, yeah, I guess, recreate the wheel.
Mm.
That just seemed natural to me to go that way. So that's what I did.
When it came to depicting like the more supernatural aspects of the script, was there like any debate on how to present things, or is what's on screen pretty much how it was written?
Yeah, we definitely discussed the lore of what takes place on the island, and Abby's ghost, the sister, the ghost of the sister, and how much of her we would see, how much of it would be, an actual apparition of her, and how much would be just things taking place without actually seeing the ghost doing it. Because there's times where we see the ghost or the apparition, and there's times where we see just writing or footsteps happening and nothing else. So yeah, that was definitely a something that we decided early on, during the writing part of it.
Tony, is there anything you want to add as far as like directing supernatural moments?
I mean, as far as the look of the film, like the overall aesthetic and the look, yeah, like Chris said, that's kind of what it is, you know. It's and where we were in Pierce County, Eastern Pierce County, beautiful views of Mount Rainier and uh, Bonnie Lake, and it's just got that vibe, which I think we love. Why we love shooting here and why I love shooting in the winter is because your art direction's kind of done for you.
All right.
I suppose that's pretty helpful, especially when you're being like budget conscious.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of the rain, you know, a lot of the effects Chris created, but a lot of times the rain is there, and we're working in the rain, and it's kind of fun because when you look at the film and you go like, is it really raining or is this Chris with his magic? What's going on here? And
Yeah.
it looks the same, and it snowed a couple times too. I
Yeah,
think.
it was pretty much half and half.
Yeah,
Half the scenes that you see rain we created either in effects or practically, and the other half is actual rain,
yeah.
just to kind of maintain that environment throughout.
Um, so you guys, you've worked together in the past. You worked on a short
Mhm.
film called Sadistic, and you were also both part of a movie called Lemonheads.
Yeah.
What brought you back together for this film?
Well, Chris hired me. We've been trying to find a film to work on and find some time to work on a feature film. Um, and it never worked out, but this one did work out. But I always say, like, you know, for me, we're in my area, there's about 5, 10 people that I can count on that I trust to work with anytime, anyway, anyhow. And Chris is one of those. And I think from the first time we met and worked together, there was a connection and a work ethic that we both have. And also a love of film that we both have as well, too. And um, yeah, so we're going to shoot something else this summer as well too together. It's just
Mhm.
there's a kinetic partnership, a way of working quickly, a way of working in the same aesthetic, and I guess in the same grounded realism. You know,
Mhm.
I think you know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. I feel the same way. We worked together for the first time on a short film in 2010.
Right?
I believe that was, yeah, 2010.
Yeah.
And I had never met you before, and it was one of the best shorts I've worked on. And I didn't know very much about cinematography. I was still getting my feet wet. So it was, yeah, it was a good relationship from that one project, and I'm definitely glad that we were able to work together as many times as we did.
Um, what was I going to say? Well, yeah, collaboration can be a tricky thing for folks in creative industries because your time doesn't always like match up. But also, like, have you found over the years, because both of you have a lot of have impressive resumes. You've worked on a lot of different things, from short films to music videos to TV shows, films, and so on and so forth. Have you found like that's like one of the best things to develop are the relationships with people who you can take seriously when it comes to following through on your endeavors? You know, because I've run into a lot of
Yeah.
folks over the years. I haven't done anything near what you guys have done, but what I've seen a lot of times is like there's folks that make films and products and so forth that create, but there's also a lot of people that are more into like the lifestyle of being creative, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, that's not the latter is definitely not me.
Yeah, me neither.
I do not live a filmmaker's lifestyle whatsoever. I have a lot of different interests. I don't I don't take selfies with my camera. I really don't care about behind the scenes photos of me. I couldn't care less. It's really just an artistic outlet, filmmaking. It's one of a few different outlets that I have artistically. I'm really into music. I'm in a band, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of both. I think I would probably go crazy if I was just shooting on set or editing and or editing. I need a few different things to keep keep placated.
Yeah, I hear you. And what I've learned in Seattle, again, being trained in the theater, I like working with the same people over and over again, and those are my favorite projects. That if we create a repertory company or an ensemble, or at least the majority of the people on the project, those to me are always more satisfying as opposed to just
Mhm.
being a hired gun on a project where I don't know anybody. It just kind of feels disjointed. It takes a lot longer to get to the work, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that
I
makes
worked.
sense. Is that part of the reason why both of you seem to be like taking some steps to kind of forge your own path a little bit, you know, starting to
Absolutely.
make your own films, and does that give you more creative freedom, or is that like more of a pain in the ass sometimes?
It's a lot of work. I mean, it's definitely a lot of work. But it's fun work. Even um, there's always, the hard thing is like because it's financial, so there's always a budget. That's the hardest part is what the budget dictates and what you're able to do and what you can't do. But we seem to find workarounds for that. But like Chris, I also teach as well too, and that's important to me. So I like to be pick and choosy in what I work on, and so I don't know, safety and familiarity.
Mhm. Yeah, but back to your other question too about building a circle of creatives. Yeah, I think that circle has gotten smaller and smaller through the last 10 plus years for me personally. Uh, just because, like you said, a lot of people are just wanting to live the lifestyle. And it gets to the point where the only conversations you're having with other people in that circle are just film. And that would drive me absolutely bananas if that were, you know, what I was doing. So I need kind of a few different things to kind of keep my creative mind going. And it really helps that I'm able to kind of go back to the well once every year or two in terms of feature filmmaking. It keeps things fresh. It feels like I'm not having to be creative in this one aspect every, week or every month or however, it's a much for me, just me personally, it's definitely a more interesting way to be creative.
Okay. Um, Given all the experiences that you have, like the accumulation, the amalgamation of your both your experiences over the year, saying the same things. The pollen count in Chicago right now is scrambling my brain. Excuse me, I'm
Yeah.
trying to recover from it would have to be the day that I'm
Mm.
doing this is would have to be the day that the trees
Yeah, of
decided to poof.
course.
Right.
Um, what I'm trying to get at is that you guys have the accumulated knowledge of your experience. I'm trying not to say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm kissing ass, You both have done so much in a varied genres, through short films and television and so forth, like The Last Laugh, Stitched to Perfection, the thriller Enmity Gauge, and then Safety Not Guaranteed, The Librarian, so on and so forth. Between the two of you, does that help you when you're working together, try to come up with ways to either avoid cliched things that have been done before, or at the same time know well enough when to stick to the trodden path?
Both. I think both, because like working in television, you got to work really fast. So I think that from my experience in television, trust some traditional coverage, trust it, it works, it's a form. Not every shot has to reinvent the wheel and be a brand new, wonderful shot. And then Chris is really good about saying, okay, well, we can do that too, but let's also add this shot that makes the scene special, or we do this that separates the scene. So it's a kind of a mix of what we got to do to get it done and what we can do to make it look like there's been some artistic integrity and thought into into the execution of the scene as well too. So it's practical meets art, and just also knowing what Chris and I are really good about is that we know time is a big element, and a lot of sets that I get on, time kind of gets away from people, and then completion of the project is hard because time runs out. I think we're pretty good about recognizing in the moment what we can execute well and what we need to pivot on.
Yeah, I think that's how we complement each other really well. Because I've never worked in television, and I've never worked on a big, movie before. And Tony has done both. Uh, a lot of almost all of my work is tiny indie, low budget projects. No big actors. I've never worked with a big actor before. Tony has, and I just come from a kind of do it yourself, make things look better than what the budget says you should make it look. How it says you should make it look, and just try to get the most bang for our buck because we don't have many bucks. So
Yeah.
I've really just honed that in over the last 15, 20 years. And I think we're at a place now where we can finally make movies relatively cheap and make them look a lot more expensive than they actually were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's something I definitely recognized looking at the short films that Chris has put together over the years. Not only the progression and the improvement in quality over the years, but just the quality of the filmmaking itself. Just the look is good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It comes across the way it's supposed to, and this what I'm getting at is I'm recalling I was working on an article not too long ago about cinematography, and there was an interview I saw with a group of people, um, and they were talking about the fact that they would prefer sometimes critics don't even mention it because of the fact that they usually don't get it right. Do you feel that way sometimes about uh, cinematography in general?
Um, like what in particular do they mention? Is it
they
something
were sort
specific?
of they were sort of getting at the fact that people just talk about it, just it's just lighting, that it has they forget about the fact that the visual poetics of the film get enhanced by the
Mhm.
cinematography. Winter Island is a great example of it because the look of it contributes to the feel of the film.
Mhm.
So a lot of critics, they mention it in a way that I guess doesn't entirely relate that or seem to actually understand what it is cinematography is trying to accomplish.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more of I guess mechanics, like the mechanics of how this all comes into the big picture in terms of how it's going to cut together, how it relates to the story. I am not a gearhead whatsoever. I couldn't care less to a certain extent what camera we're shooting on. I also come from a gaffing lighting background. I've never worked as a assistant camera before or in the camera department if I'm not shooting DPing it. So a lot of my I guess structure when I'm building a shot list or thinking about the look of a movie is lighting related, uh, colors, placement, um, sources, practicals, all that stuff. So Yeah, so there's a lot of different DPs out there. People that they have to have the latest and greatest technology. I'm not that person whatsoever. I shot Winter Island on a 13-year-old camera, digital camera, um, and it doesn't really matter to a certain extent. I think there's so many other pieces to the puzzle that do matter. We all, most filmmakers know that it's script and performances and locations and art direction. All that stuff is way more important than the camera you're shooting on. So I just decided to kind of ignore that part of it and hope that the rest of the elements come together well.
Tony, do you have any anything you'd like to add in that regard? Like when you're working on something, especially on a budget, do you ever get that feeling like you're Val Lewton, or William Castle? Like, how am I going to shoot around something and still make it look amazing?
Yeah, I know. But I think just kind of going into it is that if everybody's on the same page as far as the overall aesthetic and look of the film and finding those themes, that's the one thing with like low budget filmmaking too. Just color palettes are huge, and just wardrobe matching the color palettes or contrasting the color palettes, and just the makeup that's being used as well too. The art direction, the simplicity of themes throughout the art direction, whether you see them or not. But as long as everybody's on the same page, then it doesn't become an ego thing when you're on set, because I think another thing that Chris and I are really good about, what we've learned, is as much pre-production as we can get and as many conversations as we can have with the artists that we're working with prior to shooting. Man, it just makes it so much easier in the day of execution. Where there's been a lot of sets where I've been on where I've had no contact with anybody, more from an acting standpoint, but very little contact, maybe a read through of the script, and then we're going right to work. But we're very transparent from the get-go about what we're trying to accomplish and want people to give their input. And you take care of all those nuts and bolts prior to shooting, man, I think it just saves a lot of time. It just saves a lot of time, and you get a lot more done in the day. Because we were shooting an average of probably about, what do you think, 8 pages a day, maybe 7 pages a day, maybe,
I
depending
think
on
it
the.
was yeah, I think it was 7 on
Yeah.
average.
Yeah. And then, I'll be stuck on some sets sometimes where it's like they're trying to get 3 pages done in a day and it's taking fucking 12 hours to do so. I'm like, what the hell? What's taking so long? Because it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. And that's the one thing that also, we recognize too, is that you're never going to get perfect. Even if we had millions and millions of dollars, we're never going to get perfect. Or what our definition of perfect is could be completely different than someone else's interpretation of what perfect is. So just go with what we like.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. Um, and, and to that, Winter Island so far has won Best Feature at the Bleedingham Horror Film Festival and Best of the Fest at the Thing in the Basement Horror Film Festival. So, is it safe to say the movie is being well received?
I'd say better received than I expected.
Yeah.
I was a little afraid that we had just a dark drama on our hands, which is easy to get, kind of go down that path when you don't have a lot of money to spend on effects and set pieces. But I think the way it was cut together and just kind of the way the suspense was ramped up in certain scenes, it feels like a horror film in a low budget sense of the term. There's a lot of things that I wish we could have done, but yeah, I was very surprised that we, even just at 2 festivals, were able to take the best feature award. That feels good because I've had a lot of films, I've done a lot of movies, and a lot of them haven't won jack shit. So
Yeah.
this feels good.
It's true, guy. We've come out of films we're going like, this film is just going to change the face of film,
Right.
and it doesn't do shit. It's like, you never know what's going to strike the audience, and that's one thing that I've learned as well too, is that you just never know how the audience is going to react to the film. I think this film was we had a cast and crew screening, and I was nervous because there's a lot of Seattle artists and producers and people in the business here, and I was a wreck, man. I was a wreck throughout that process. And then afterwards, I was amazed at how many people said how much they really loved the film and how authentic they felt this film was. And so that was like the biggest compliment, I think, is to get that type of authenticity and truthfulness in the, that's not commenting on the horror genre, which is what I see a lot of films do, where it's not falling into the tropes of a traditional horror film, but just kind of going back to the start of the conversation, seeing the horror within what was happening and what was going on.
That's
And
definitely
really,
something I appreciated about the film because the
yeah,
last couple of decades has been horror has become so like drenched in meta commentary and
yeah,
sarcasm that it's
Yeah,
kind of like lost
for
it's
sure.
lost certain quality to it. And this film has a sincerity to it,
yeah,
the events that unfold, and a disturbing relatability. I mean, even if that was not 100% your experience growing up as a kid, you can see stuff in there that you're in this film. You can see things in Winter Island that people go through, and it's like understandable. Like you could see your family falling apart like these people did.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
appreciate that, man. That means a lot. Having people relate to it is a you know in their childhood, from their childhood. That's a big compliment. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. And especially I think with my generation too, because I'm 60, just like on the boomer X cusp. And there was shit you just didn't talk about, and just coming from Irish immigrants too, it's like, man, you keep some of that stuff to your grave. You just don't talk. And I
Mm.
saw it eat away at a lot of my family, just eat away emotionally, physically, drink, whatever. It just kind of ate away. So it's sad, but yeah, a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
So I guess then the question becomes, what does the future hold? I know you guys are taking Winter Island to a number of festivals, and is there somewhere we can keep track of that? I mean, I know you're going to be in Chicago May 3rd, and then is there like a website where people can see whether or not you're going to be in their city?
We only have a couple film festivals coming up that we know the dates. We have the one in Chicago, which is May 3rd, at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Um, and that's the information for that. I believe it's the 10 to 12 screening on Friday night. So next Friday. Um, can't remember the name of the theater, but we'll do a posting probably this week or early next week for the exact information on that. And then at the exact same time, same night in Seattle at the Crypticon Seattle Film Festival, we have another screening. I believe it's 9 to 11 on their film festival theater screen.
And that's the third, right, Chris? Crypticon is the
Yeah,
third.
those are both those screenings are on the third. One in Seattle, one in Chicago.
Got it.
So but the place you can track our events and where we're going to be showing and when we're releasing the movie, you can go to Facebook, where we put a little bit more information on Facebook than anywhere else. Um, I can give you that link. It's make sure I have it right. I should probably know this off the top of my head, but it's facebook.com/Winter Island Movie.
Okay.
And then there is distribution to, or some distribution that's happening. So yeah, keep a lookout on the Facebook page for that one. You can watch it at home on your own.
Yeah, I'm
You know,
hoping this summer we'll have a release, streaming release, so people can watch it in their own comfort of their own home on their own time, and that will also make sure that everyone knows on Facebook.
Okay. I mean, I know that right now the emphasis is, of course, on Winter Island. Do you want to talk about any of your pending projects that you're working on right now, like Martingale or Redneck Hamlet? Redneck Hamlet definitely intrigues the hell out of me.
well, Chris could talk about Martingale. I can give a little bit about Redneck.
Yeah, Mark and Gail were just in the last stage of getting it distributed. Um, immediate information on that, but that's hopefully going to hit one of the exclusive platforms. We're supposed to release on Tubi, but I don't want to. I really don't want to give any information until that's like a done deal. So um, that's. I mean, that was a long process. That was shot through COVID, and that was a tough one to produce.
Then Redneck Hamlet, we're just in the process of discussions and pre-production. The producer writer Chris and I worked with on Lemonheads. He was one of the just distributors on Lemonheads, and so we're just kind of in the talk and then the initial concepts. Just finished a film called Midnight River that my sons wrote and shot, which is it's in the horror genre as well too, borrows from the horror genre. And that's just, we're in the post process right now, just finishing up on the sound on that. But that's one of those movies where I watch and go, this is amazing. I hope it has a chance. It's like, it's really good. And then we're in pre-production right now. We'll be shooting Devil's Wine in Eastern Washington and Walla Walla. We're shooting that in June and through the first part of July. We got going on.
You got more going on than I do, I'll tell you that much. But I want to thank you both for taking the time to talk to us and let us know about this very interesting film, Winter Island, and try to get the word out and let people know to keep their eye out for it.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any of the other films that we got coming up, if you want to have a conversation about that, once Martingale's out and gone and Midnight River's out and be able to be seen, we'd love to have that conversation as well too.
No, I would be happy to have it. It would be my privilege. Thank you very much.